There's Ben. Ben's back. Hello, Ben.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good.
Good.
I've been having a little bit of a beef. I'm unfamiliar with how chats work, live chats work, but I've been getting in there with some of your folks and a little bit of back and forth. Good stuff. But I would love to when you're talking about gravity, I'd love to see if I can offer you something for the debate tonight with this guy Nathan. Is that right?
We won't be discussing gravity tonight.
Right. But one thing I thought might be helpful, I tried to watch a stream of his that Posh was on,
right.
which was 9 hours long. I don't know how anyone could do that, but I guess people have time. But what I was interested in, maybe trying to present, see if you can follow me on that. But it's related to the gravity thing, because that's the mechanistic worldview, right? When we're talking about fundamental presuppositions, that the mechanistic worldview works best when we're talking about physics, objects, right?
Yeah, but I would say that gravity isn't actually talking about physics, but it wants to talk about physics. But that's a different
debate. I think it's interesting. Okay, and what you're going to have trouble with, Nathan, is he's going to say that the mind is also an object, correct? That's his hang up?
Yeah, he must accept that the mind, the thing that's actually, in Pasha's language, appraising any sort of propositions or thoughts itself. It's kind of like, it's the thing that's producing the thoughts, but it's also the thing that's reflecting on the thoughts. If that's, he has to accept that it's purely mechanistic.
Your thoughts are brain waves, something along those
physical
lines, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and what I'm saying is I saw what he was doing with Pash. And these debates end up often being, even though the point is correct to say, but how can a machine think, right? But it often just becomes, nah, right? It just becomes this kind of thing. So this is my point. He also said, I saw on his website that he's into science, that he's, he wants to reconcile. I think he does want to become a Christian in some way, but he has this problem with science, which is often a problem with Darwin, right? So if we take three, what I think the problem is, you get into three metaphysical presuppositions. One, which applies to the physical world. A second, which applies to the physical world. A second, which applies to the natural world, not human. And a third, which applies to humans. You follow what I'm saying? So categories of thought, mind, etc.
Wouldn't the first two be the same? What's the distinction between the first two?
Okay, I love that you say that. There's a huge distinction between the first two, right? Because if he says, I believe in evolution, right? The natural world, according to him, has a telos or a goal. The natural world, according to him, has a telos or a goal, right?
Right.
How can a mechanism have a goal?
It can't.
So, but... Right. So this is where you can say, like, okay, I understand you're not going to get the thought thing because you're just going to keep saying it's the brain, it's the brain, it's the brain. But if you say that living beings have an orientation towards survival personally, and that life itself as a whole has an orientation towards, I think, what we would call flourishing, right? And if we just call that nature with a capital N, okay, but I call it God, are we good? You see what I'm saying?
Right. Well, I guess I would say
no, there was no such thing as atheistic Darwinism, really.
Right. There's even a bigger fundamental problem is that he can't, from a mechanistic view, there's no justification for a belief about it being a mechanistic view, right? There's nothing valid or prioritized about a proposition about naturalism being true. If naturalism true, then any commentary on naturalism or argumentation can't be justified as something distinct from just an output, right? It's just an output.
I understand, but now you're doing the thing of going like, well, but you're saying words, and words imply logic, and logic implies the spiritual. I understand that that's one way to come at it, but if you just leave that aside, you follow me, and you say like, okay, but like your question, I don't think you meant that sincerely, that these are the same metaphysic, right?
Well, no, you said physical and natural, so I didn't know what you meant by the difference.
The natural world, living creatures. right? Living
Oh,
creatures, the
like
natural
not,
world. Yeah, not
but not.
naturalism in that sense. Yeah,
Oh, okay, like organisms and things that are
exactly.
not rocks or rocks or
Right.
air,
No,
space,
no. Living beings
living.
are
Okay.
fundamentally different. Even an atheist will say this: living beings are different than non-living beings, right? Than
Mm,
physical physical
right.
objects. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, instead of saying like, well, you can't say anything about those two. I don't know if I'm doing this right. Those two categories without already agreeing with me on the third category, that there's a soul and a mind, right? That's distinctly human things, which we would say is traditionally the existence of a rational soul,
Right.
right? And I understand that you can do that, but why not just say, so you believe in evolution in some sense? Okay, so why? How is it that if how is it that they don't behave mechanistically? A horse,
Um.
when it's approaching a tree,
Yeah.
has
Yeah. That's
an inherent right. A car doesn't give a shit, right? The car does not have.
if yeah, if that, I think it'll be a something worth responding if he brings it up. But I think if I bring up evolution, he'll use it as an opportunity to get into the weeds about particular things about it. So he can use that as like a red
Yeah,
herring in a way,
yeah.
and then so I have to
But I think, do you think
respond
he's
like
a
a serve.
do you think he's a sincere seeker? Because he seems to be. I don't think he's one of these asshole atheists.
I think based on, and this is pure speculation and some level of what do you call it,
Right.
psychoanalyzing,
Yeah.
is that because I've watched his progression from theism to atheism with his influence from a guy, Pine Creek Doug,
Oh yeah, I
who's
saw
just
that. Yeah.
strict rational, right? And so all these
Yeah.
approaches are just evidential or
Well, I would
in
say rational in quotes, right? Wouldn't you? It's not
right, yeah,
rational
yeah.
at all.
No, it's not.
Right.
But in their world, like let's go with empiricism and all this stuff to figure out what's worth believing and not. And so from his little progress to sort of like a doe-eyed, bright-eyed kid, right? There's a
Lots of
fundamental
time on his
difference.
hands.
Yeah, in his there's a fundamental difference if you look at 2 years ago and now with the weight that has been gained. Yet, if he's free of theology and free of all of these silly notions of supernatural, you
Yeah.
would be lighter, right? Yeah, but I found that he's more he's a little more, right? Yeah, but I found that he's a little more tense and
Well,
maybe
if you
there's
look, he had a blog post saying, "I want to become a Christian again. I want to reconvert, but here are my problems." And it seemed like he was conceding, yeah, there are real problems, but he kept introducing this thing called toxic Christianity, which
yeah.
obviously we
So
can say like
yeah,
this is
yeah.
programming or whatever, right? Okay, but I think he experienced toxic Christianity. I don't mean to offend your audience, but fundamentalist Bible thumping Christianity can be irrational, right? It can put you in a state where you have to choose between your mind and God, right? And so I do think atheism is better than that. I believe that's true, but I believe you're Orthodox. Is that correct?
No, I just lean towards that, and
Oh,
it looks like my road is pointing in that direction.
yeah. I mean, the Orthodox. I'm Catholic. Orthodox and Catholic. We would say God would never create you. God does not want you to choose between your rational nature and the Christian faith. No way. That's not on the table. And I'm wondering if this guy actually might. I understand what you said, but I'm saying like strategically, your approach to him is he's my enemy. I would say, what if
No,
well, you're saying I don't want to give him. I understand it's a bait too, and I understand your opponents, but maybe he's a little bit more of a, because he does seem like a nice guy, a genuine searcher, even though he just gets trapped in the same, I think,
yeah.
9-hour loop of saying brainwaves, thoughts, right? You know what I'm saying? So wouldn't that possibly be a path that could open to him to say like, okay, Darwinism, do you understand my point there? Darwinism
No, I understand.
is a religion.
Yeah,
It's not secular.
I don't think that'll be the best path. But eventually, if that comes up, it really does require this. Here's the problem: is that even with no matter what, the the back and forth about evolution and telos and all of this stuff and meaning and information and all the stuff that's involved with having that back and forth, it really ends up being for the audience. So I can't go into this going, I'm doing this for Nathan and my concept of where I want to go. Actually, I don't want to go anywhere. It's him pushing naturalism and physicalism as a coherent view, and my only job is to render it incoherent in the most fun, loving, enjoyable way.
Right. So, but don't you think with these debates, people get a little bored if it's just the same old, same old? You know what I mean? Maybe
I don't care if you're bored.
But isn't it for the audience to also?
Yeah, but enjoy? not just to entertain. I think entertainment would be like 1/3, according to my assessment, in a debate. But really, entertainment could be very well revealing lackluster positions and things that don't go anywhere, and you highlight that they don't go anywhere, and you demonstrate over and over again. The main point is you set out in the intro to a path for the audience to listen from, and they'll be able to see some of the stop signs and the different roads along the way that you lay out for them in advance. Now, if he does go Evo, I'll use that to my advantage, but I don't think I'll need to.
Because you're searching for truth together.
Yeah, I don't think I'll need to, because the fundamental argument is naturalism can't justify the search for truth.
Yeah.
I can't account for the search for truth.
By the way, I was supposed to verify my identity today, and I cannot do so. Yeah.
I can't account for the search for truth.
By the way, I was supposed to verify my identity today, and I cannot do so, obviously. Right?
Why not?
How can I tell you who I am? Because wouldn't I be? I could show you.
Well, are you Ben Thorpe or Abel?
I would say both.
Okay. Is Ben
I think
Thorpe's,
it's a funny. Go ahead.
Is Ben Thorpe searchable, and will that searched name come up with your image?
Benjamin Thorpe. Yeah, and you'd find social media accounts that would look like they would also be something that my handlers would set up for me, right?
Right. Yeah, your handlers would make a version of you.
Can I tell you, I love your, one guy in the comments said, I think this guy has been to more than one open mic poetry night. And I would like to say that's very funny because of the beer, but I just have a lack of hygiene. That's the problem here. Not
well, that would be another,
like warm and fuzzy.
well, the observation might be the same as assuming the hygiene problem.
Yeah, that's true. There is the Venn diagram there is also, there's a lot of overlap between hygiene.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely look like you got through some of that stuff. Some of who's the dude who's the guy who just rambles about metaphysics and everything? Everyone thinks he's so great.
Jordan Peterson? No.
No. That he's the new version of this guy.
Jordan Peterson, what a poor guy. Sad story.
Yeah,
I feel bad for him because he's an evolutionist, and so he says life is nothing but suffering, and you're just like, oh no. Life
like
is
for
joy.
you it is.
There's suffering, but it's joy. Why would anyone want to join a movement that's all about suffering? That's the malspel, not the gospel.
Right.
But anyways, a wonderful man. I love him. But one other thing, I want to pick up a little bit of a beef with your chat. Just because I'm older doesn't mean I'm an idiot. It could be, right? But just because I'm older doesn't mean I'm Gen X. I'm not a boomer, but I mean, I have lots of kids, and they make fun of older people. But I mean,
we have one basic standard to determine if we think someone's an idiot, and that is if you think 3 Freemasons landed on the moon and played golf. That's it. And then there's nothing wrong with you being partially an idiot, but that's our introduction.
So I'm an idiot because I don't believe that. I don't not believe it, but I can't be agnostic.
You're agnostic.
I have no idea what that means. That there were 3.
Is it possible? Is it possible?
No,
to
I do
be neutral.
Go ahead. I'm saying I don't know, and I don't really want to know. So I'm a partial idiot, or I might be an idiot.
Right. Well, I would say not wanting to know might make you an idiot, or it could keep you from agony and ostracization.
Why would your community want to label certain people as idiots? Because they're threats? Because they're working for the FBI if they don't agree with you?
No, it's fun rhetoric. Because then
But
we
but it
get
can be dangerous, right? I mean, it can be dangerous. No?
dangerous how?
Well, I mean, if we want to go to 9/11 and then we want to go to, let's say, some of the disputed facts of World War II, right? It gets into situations that can affect people's lives, right? I mean,
Yeah, I wouldn't call that dangerous though, but I understand. It could be not
imprudent,
pragmatic, not preferable, um,
right?
but certainly not I don't think dangerous. I think it's dangerous to do potentially dangerous to do the opposite, is to go with the status quo, such that you're just navigating through basically a weaponized screen-based story narrative, right? Where everything you're getting is just from a screen. And I get the irony, we're
Right,
all
yeah.
listening to us through a screen.
Yeah.
But that kind of hooked in thing where suddenly you can be sold a narrative that's actually totally incompatible and consistent with your direct reality of your experience.
But also on the other side's a danger as well, right?
of negating
Seeing things
everything.
that aren't there. There was a comment, and I know this isn't just in fun, but I was smoking at a certain point, and someone went, "I don't see any smoke coming out of that cigarette." Okay, right. It could be a camera, right? You know,
be.
but I just think it was interesting, and at the end of it, you're kind of like, well, if he was a reporter, what would his angle be? Right?
You look
know
like
what I mean?
you look like a reporter.
I guess that's a compliment. I look like an intelligent person.
What is
who's
your
working for the other
occupation?
side. I am currently unemployed.
You should do Between Two Ferns, but all about conspiracy theories.
Yeah, I'd love to do something. It's funny, right? But you have to have a sense of humor about where you're at when you're in a conspiracy theory, right?
Mm.
A healthy sense of like, okay, yeah, if we go too far, it gets crazy. And I do use
Right.
the word crazy, and I'm not trying to insult anyone, but there is such a thing as being crazy, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, you can think crazy and not act crazy. I think there might be a distinction there where the things you say and think might be crazy, but you can be totally functional and kind of live in a very productive way and so forth. So
Well, can I tell you just one story, and then I'll let you go because I know you got to
Okay.
prep. But for various reasons, I was living for a short time in a hotel earlier this year, and I purchased an RV. I had some money because I sold some real estate. I purchased an RV, and I was kind of half living out of the RV, half out of the hotel, right? Which is a guy who would look like me would look like. So, but there was another guest at the hotel who was a young black guy, and he was over at the RV taking pictures of it. And I said, "What's up, guy?" And he said, "What's the deal with your van?" And I was like, "Don't know." And he's like, "Well, can you tell me why you're surveilling me?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And the cops showed up later. He assumed I called him, but I talked with the police because I was like, "This guy, I don't know what's going on."
wait, someone
here.
thought you were surveying them?
That I was a surveillance RV, like that you'd have like mirrored tinted glass with, right, which I did have there. And as I was talking with the police saying like, I don't know, is this right? They were going to take him out because he was also accusing the hotel of stealing stuff from him. But he's up in the hallway taking pictures of me talking to the police, which makes me look like I'm in on it from his point of view. You get what I'm saying? So he's like, "Oh, see, he's talking with the police. They're going, how's the surveillance going?" And I'm going,
Yeah.
pretty good. I think we got.
I mean, to be fair, you do look like a private investigator also.
Really?
If there was like a lineup and it was like, hey guys, there's a private investigator / reporter who is unemployed, check him out, and they'd be like,
Right.
that guy.
A private investigator, so like a Magnum PI kind of look. Is that what you're saying?
No, not as exciting. More like, who are these people? What are they about? Something you're not a reporter, but you collect info that you can maybe sell to some independent source or something like that.
Oh yeah. So an independent reporter.
So you say you're writing a paper?
Yeah, no, that's what your chat said.
Oh, okay.
I've got a hit piece about how conspiracy theories come.
Gotcha.
And I'll tell you the answer of what my angle would be. My angle would be that you're becoming increasingly popular, and the angle would be, let's see how this starts so we can nip it in the bud before we end up with another Tucker Carlson or Alex Jones. That would be
Right.
the angle. And I'd
Yeah.
have time and I'd be hanging around and, you know, you'd say like, well, this guy, I'm not saying I seem too smart to be doing this, but you'd say, well,
but
this
how
doesn't
would you
seem like this guy gets it.
how would you nip it in the bud if it's just so infectious and funny and open form style? I mean, you'd have to do a smear a lot. You'd have to lie, really.
Oh, no, it'd be really easy. You want me to tell you how I'm going to do it?
Uh-huh.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, Jimbob. Am I?
Uh-huh.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, Jimbob. Am I?
But how would you do it?
Kidding. You want me to tell you how?
Style. I mean, you'd have to and the
And that the bud and angle
Okay,
hit
so-
piece about how
Oh,
that's what your chat said.
so you say so what are they about?
So like a Magnum
That guy who line up and it was like, hey, like
surveillance was like this guy you talk, and he was over at the RV taking pictures of it. And I said, "What's up, guy?" And he said, "What's the deal with your van?" And I was like, "Don't know." And he's like, "Well, can you tell me why you're surveilling me?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And the cops showed up later. He assumed I called him, but I talked with the police because I was like, "This guy, I don't know what's going on."
wait, someone
here.
thought you were surveying them?
That I was a surveillance RV, you know, like that you'd have like mirrored tinted glass, right, which I did have there. And as I was talking with the police saying like, I don't know, is this right? They were going to take him out because he was also accusing the hotel of stealing stuff from him. But he's up in the hallway taking pictures of me talking to the police, which makes me look like I'm in on it from his point of view. You get what I'm saying? So he's
Yeah,
like,
but-
"Oh, see, he's talking with the police. They're going, how's the surveillance going?" And I'm going,
Yeah.
pretty
You
good. I
do-
think we got
I
him.
mean, to be fair, you do look like a private investigator also.
Really?
If there was like a lineup and it was like, hey guys, there's a private investigator / reporter who is unemployed, pick him out. And they'd be like,
Right.
that guy.
A private investigator? So like a Magnum PI kind of look? Is that what you're saying?
No, not as exciting. More like, you know, who are these people? What are they about? You know, something you're not a reporter, but you collect info that you can maybe sell to some independent source or something like that.
Or, oh, yeah. So an independent
Yeah.
reporter.
So you say
who's
you're writing a
farming you.
paper?
Yeah, no, that's what your chat said.
Oh, okay.
I've got a
Okay,
hit
so-
piece about how
Oh, yeah,
conspiracy
hit piece.
theories come.
Gotcha.
And I'll tell you
Yeah.
the answer of what my angle would be. My angle would be that you're becoming increasingly popular, and the angle would be, let's see how this starts so we can nip it in the bud before we end up with another Tucker Carlson or Alex Jones. That would be
Right.
the angle. And I'd
Yeah.
have time. And I'd be hanging around, and you know, you'd say like, "Well, this guy." I'm not saying I seem too smart to be doing this, but you'd say,
But-
"Well,
but
this
how
doesn't
would you-
seem like this guy gets it."
How would you nip it in the bud if it's just so infectious and funny and open form style? I mean, you'd have to do a smear a lot. You'd have to lie, really.
Oh, no, it'd be really easy. You want me to tell you how I'm going to do it?
Uh-huh.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, Jimbob. Am I?
But how would you do it?
So I would cherry pick. I would cherry pick things that we've
That's
said where I
lying.
seem normal. Well, I would edit, right? And then I would add myself after you and I talk, and I would go, it would just be me going, "Geez, that was crazy in there." And the next day we were doing gravity, right? And I'm not saying that's me saying that, but I'm just saying, right? So I don't really, you have to, I think this is the fundamental problem in your community is who do you trust, right? Because for example, Posh, who was the guy who recruited me, is a 27-year-old man in Serbia who knows 7 languages and speaks like a combination of Darth Vader and Dracula, frankly, you know? So, I mean, couldn't he be an operative? He'd be more likely than me, or maybe we're working together. You see what he'd be more likely than me, or maybe we're working together. You see what I mean? It never ends. But I think you're a totally sincere person. I see it in your eyes.
Yeah, but how would you be able to assess the kinds of people who are, in quotes, my community if they overlap with all sorts of communities?
I'm just saying from the chat.
Alex
Just from
Jones is
my
a meatball. Jimbob is a trucker hat wearing champion, folded like a chair. Yeah, pretty much. I don't have. I don't think I don't have the passion or the desire for notoriety to be an Alex Jones or a Tucker Carlson. You have to go through basically the eye of the needle, but not necessarily about truth. You go down a narrow road, but toward a different narrow road
but
where
you're good with
suddenly
you're good with images. Images are dangerous. One meme can right over at this point. One meme can cause a revolution. So you do a great job of using humor.
Digital Noses is a Peronian skeptic. You will be hard pressed to get him to affirm any certainty. Right? Yeah, that'll be part of the tactic because anything about uncertainty is some level of certainty, and then you have to ask where does that come from, and how do you even know the difference between two different propositions if they're literally mechanistic burps. The brain even looks like a stomach sometimes, and why would there be a difference between a fart and a proposition?
Hey, good luck. I'm planning to be there tonight.
Cool.
To your chat community. I'm sorry if I've offended you. Let's
you can't
let's
offend
call
me.
a truce.
That's my choice.
No, the chat community.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm not offended by anything you've said, and I'll continue to give you tidbits as to who I am, if you want to.
I mean, it's very gamey. I don't like games. I like straightforward people. But I don't. Yeah, I'm not.
I didn't start it.
Right? No, I know. It's like.
Or did I? Right? That's the problem. Or did I?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you just tell us. You tell us.
Right, but if I told you,
right? It's not like it's like who am I though? It's like I know who I am, right? And I'll tell you, and then all these other people will tell you who they are, and if there's any sort of ambiguity, even if it's for fun, basically it actually, and I think you're doing this like sort of half a bit where you're actually catalyzing the thing that you're kind of in questioning about is like, how do you know anything for certain in these truth communities, right? And so you're playing into that a little bit. But at the same time, the irony is that's the ambiguity that we see in different various topics or categories in which are under the microscope is part of the reason people are like, well, I'm not really sure about this guy.
It's a problem with the internet, but I can't solve it by just asserting that you can trust me, right?
Well, but that itself is something we can, that statement alone presents, if we trusted that, right, just that statement, that'll give us a lower level of trust.
If you accepted that, if I said, look, guys, I am
like I say, believe people in what they say. Just believe them, right?
Right, I agree with you. Yeah.
Right, just kind of like until it all sort of crumbles, and that'll be on them. It won't really be on you.
But I'm saying with a guy in the van, if I said, look, I'll take you inside my van, he'd go, yeah, sure, of course. Of course it looks like a regular RV. And all the cameras are super small in the walls of it, right? Of course.
No, I get there's
you need to talk to the police and the police only, right? You cannot talk to me. Because it would have never ended.
I understand that phenomenon exists, particularly in overlapping. I understand that phenomenon exists, particularly in overlapping truther communities, where no matter what the answer is, the response to the answer is, of course, yeah, why wouldn't that be the case? Because the paradigm of conspiracy, everything is unknown, epistemic nihilism, nothing can be trusted. If that's that's what's informing how you interpret things, then it's always going to seem that way. I understand your position, but we all get that now. So the question is then, if we already know that, that's what you're pointing out, what's the next step?
I'm just saying, I think it would be good to have a good sense of humor about this, a sense of self-criticism which
Right.
I don't sense that you don't have. But I think I've been around people who have a lot of conspiracy theories, and maybe they're right about some things, but they really have to pull it back at a certain point. Anyways, have a great debate tonight. I'll be
Thanks.
watching if I can, and
Cool.
taking notes for my article or whatever. Right? So that's a joke.
Yeah, no, I get it. Very, very Zach Galifianakis, right? Almost identical humor, where always on, not sure, you know. You can't really know if... I used to be like that, by the way. I used to like that people couldn't actually pin whether I was doing a bit, being like Andy Kaufman-esque and or whatever it is, and I was able to do it fairly well, and I didn't know why. And I realized later on, especially after having kids, where you actually have to go through a process of putting your nonsense through a colander, right? You can't afford the nonsense, because you start to realize that if you present yourself one way and it's a lie, and you do it 3 times, then you become the lie. And that's why lying is actually a violation of your own identity. In that, what I mean by that is, if it's not clear to the external world who you are, that means who you say you are and how you act are together as one thing, and it's clear. It's like putting yourself on a board, right? You play a board game, and you're like, I chose the red character, and the red can go to these places, and this is how we should interact with that. And it's declared, it's evident, it's perceived, there's a consistency to it. Lying to oneself and to other people, they both have the similar consequence, is that you actually train people to not know how to identify with you in the world. So it's almost like lying is a form of annihilation, because the law of identity of who you are is blurred in ambiguity, jokes, skits, pranks. And what it does is it trains the external world. When our kids are all in school now, and the fundamental thing they're starting to learn, obviously, besides reading, is pairing ideas and concepts with particulars. That's like a required mapping skill set, so that you can navigate the world and call things what they are, and know things that aren't know things when they're not what they are, and understand some level of fundamental deception, at least at the direct interface level. Now, when you get into larger scale deceptions, you're dealing with mass scale lying and violation of identity. So it's an interesting way of looking at lying that isn't fully or isolated strictly to lying that isn't fully lying and violation of identity. So it's an interesting way of looking at lying that isn't fully or isolated strictly to the moral or theistic explanation of it, but it's included and it overlaps. So you just, if nobody knows, and then they don't know how to interact with you. So it's like the boy cried wolf, but perpetually, right? Where you just don't know. And now, unfortunately for Ben, now nobody knows, right? And his point is, well, the irony is that he's posing that a truther community, let's say, would say, well, nobody knows now, right? The irony is that he's doing that. He's actually making that occur, right? To prove that occurs, which ironically is exactly what the person who goes, yeah, the van would look like that. Why wouldn't it look like that? That's funny. Andrew just says, I never saw a guy take a drag of the smoke. I think it might be Zach Galifianakis. I think Zach Galifianakis might be a huge fan of mine. And maybe that's what's going on.